Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Just waiting for a few more people to join and we will kick off. Thank you for joining us today. Good to see you all here. Okay, I think we're just over the 12 o'clock time frame, so we will kick off and get started with this exciting webinar we have today. Hi, my name's Karen Brooks. I am the Deputy Director for GW Shift, and we are here to talk about this green hydrogen opportunity in the Southwest England and South Wales and what it really means for the region. And we're launching this great report that was written by Laura Norris, who we're going to hear from in a moment. And it highlights that potential of a 750 billion global market by 2050 in green hydrogen. And that gives a significant opportunity for the UK. But it's not just about the market size, it's about industrial competitiveness, jobs, skilled jobs at that, and supply chain growth, and that transition to net zero and decarbonisation. So the key question is, are we ready to turn this region potential into delivery? And I've got some great people with me today. I have Dr. Laura Norris Webster, who's the author of the report. We've got Fraser Eli, from CEO of Latent Drive, a really good SME in this space. We have Anna Lewis, who's the decarbonisation project manager at Caerphilly County Borough Council, and we have Matt Browning, an investment manager at the FSE Group. So we've got a really distinguished panel for you today, and I'm going to hand over to Laura in just a moment. Before I do that, I would like to just tell you a little bit about what GW Shift is. So GW Shift is a place-based program to support the green hydrogen economy across the Southwest and South Wales. It's really about connecting up industry, investors, academics, and the civic organisations, the councils in that region, to really look at decarbonisation across this area and developing energy security. So really topical at the moment, given how we're all seeing the prices rising at the petrol pump, and we need to ensure that we have that energy security going forward. So we have a lot of activity going on in GW Shift, which I will highlight to you with a couple of colleagues at the end of this session. But before then, I'd love to pass over to Laura Norris Webster, who has written this report, to tell us a little bit more about some of the highlights of it before we get into our panel discussion today. So over to you, Laura.
Thank you very much, Karen. If you pop to the next slide, please. And we'll get started. So to give you a little bit about my background, I'm an economic geographer. So my expertise, it lies in innovation, regional economic development, sustainability transition, and sort of how these three things coalesce within a region and within a country to sort of link this idea that new technology can sort of bring very good economic benefit with it as well. So in terms of some of the headlines that Karen's already mentioned, sort of the green hydrogen opportunity, you're looking at, and this is by 2030, you're looking at a 750 billion global market forecast, 30 to 90 billion for the UK market share. And there's a lot of reporting that will be a above proportional attribution because of the expertise and the industry that we have in this region and within the UK. So that's obviously a very important a part of this. And then there's a huge estimated export opportunity. So today, I'm not going to go into every detail of the report. Hopefully some of you have had time to read it. If not, I recommend you do so at a later date. But this will just be a quick canter through mainly section 1, which collates the key data and relevant policy initiatives, which gives you an indication of the direction of travel and what you might need to be thinking about. And then section 2, which I will give a brief summary of, is highlight some of the sort of socio-economic opportunities that are already happening in the region. And I'd say is if you are seeking to pursue sort of funding, reading some of these case studies might be my top tip of thinking about how you might structure your sort of applications, how you might engage with people, and how you sort of can do this team approach, really. And I think that's the essential thing thinking about this, is because it is a very important industry and it's a future industry, there's a lot of team support out there for you, GW Shift not least being one of these opportunities. So if we can pop to the next slide. Thank you. So green hydrogen, I'm not going to go into the engineering entirely, but it's made by splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen. But the important part in this, and why the sector needs to think in terms of low carbon, decarbonized green hydrogen, is that 1 kilo of fossil fuel hydrogen can emit up to 12 kilos of CO2 equivalent. So that's quite a significant impact. So if we used electricity, such as in green hydrogen, or if we used carbon capture and storage, or we used nuclear as another option. So there's a vast range of sort of colours to refer to the different hydrogen types. This would then all look at reducing that carbon impact and that global house gas impact of producing hydrogen. So in terms of transportation, there's lots of different options. These options vary due to sort of safety regulations, the energy density, and then costs, because there's a balance in between how much you refrigerate hydrogen to condense it or how much you add pressure to condense it. So it can be transported by gas cylinder, compressed trailer, cryogenic liquid tanker, or pipeline network, as you will know some of the Highline sort of project that would be then blending it with existing gases and extracting at the end. So there's lots of options, and these options will all depend on sort of regional capacity, safety regulations, and sort of end use proposals as well. So in terms of hydrogen applications, and I think this is really significant, is that for hydrogen and for low carbon green hydrogen, there's a lot of different potential markets and potential uses. So it's not that if you're engaging with hydrogen, it's the emails are showing rather than the slide. There we go. So rather than just looking at sort of hydrogen as a sort of a singular industry or a singular opportunity, there's lots of different sectors. So in steel making, it can replace coal in iron ore reduction. It's very much receiving a huge amount of attention in shipping as a fuel in its own right, and as a component within green ammonia or green methanol. Aviation, again, receiving attention as a fuel. In transportation, if any of you have been on Auto Trader recently, you can select hydrogen as your fuel type for the car that you want to purchase. So I think that gives you an idea really of where we're getting to in terms of sort of market maturity and sort of technological maturity. Another really important thing that hydrogen can do is, and you know, green hydrogen in particular, is that grid balancing. So if you're looking at an area that has abundant renewable energy sources, but is difficult to get the infrastructure there, you could use hydrogen as an energy store or as a way of balancing the grid. So these are all really important potentials for hydrogen. Next slide, please. So because of all these sort of identified opportunities, there's a lot of policy support for hydrogen. And this is global support for hydrogen and its derivatives. It's not sort of a UK sort of PLC type thing. You know, there's significant conversations happening in the European Union and in America as well. So it's a sort of a global, it's a global opportunity, and it's a global development. In the 2025 UK spending review, there was 500 million announced for hydrogen infrastructure. A lot of this funding is coming through the hydrogen allocation rounds. And if you look in the report, it'll show you that actually South Wales and the Southwest are actually really doing quite well at gaining these projects and gaining the funding. And this is because, you have energy security from it, that energy balancing, you can stabilize energy pricing. And, unfortunately, we are now in another period where energy instability is a significant sort of headline. So that, again, is an issue. So this all then, and I think this is the interesting thing about hydrogen, even though it's a global opportunity and it's a global market and it's a global sort of policy initiative, it has very localized activity and it has a regional supply chain. And a lot of hydrogen is produced and used within a region. And that, for me, as my viewpoint as someone that's very interested in regions and economic development, is fantastic, because then you get a lot of sort of closed returns within the region, and you get a lot of spillover effect as well. So then that's the knock on to other industries. It also means as well, not subject to the report, but if you have an interest in energy justice or decarbonisation justice, this renewed activity in a region can be really, really significant for addressing some of these concerns. So take, for example, Port Talbot. Decarbonisation is obviously taking jobs out of the region, but sort of the new opportunities in producing sort of green hydrogen, green ammonia, and so forth can provide those new jobs and new prosperity. And it's the decarbonisation, as I say, of old and new markets, because hydrogen is used within fertilizers to produce ammonia. Ammonia in itself contributes to around 3% of global emissions, and that is mainly being used within farming. So there's existing markets that have a significant impact, and then there are these new potentials, sort of shipping, aviation, and so forth. So because of this, and the report will show you sort of the number of policies that are already in existence, there's going to be a high level of support likely, and that's policy support to remove some of the barriers, and that's some fiscal support as well to sort of support technology development or removal of barriers or concept designs and so forth. Next slide, please. So from this, there's a lot of supply chain opportunities, and thinking about that sort of very regionalised, and the region could be South Wales, Southwest, the UK generally, thinking about that regionalised opportunity, there's a lot of ways for the supply chain to become involved. It's a similar equipment requirement to the oil, gas and petrochemical industry. And, these regions, our regions, are very well known for their involvement with heavy industry and their sort of capacity to do this. And I've certainly seen in other industries, sort of like marine energy, for example, this existing expertise and this existing capacity and capabilities and a lot of general know-how can actually help sort of transition to new industries quite quickly. So, you've got the raw materials, you've got manufacturing support for production equipment, the infrastructure to transport, distribute, store. And then directly related then is obviously the renewable energy for production, if we're looking at green ammonia. And this is an important sort of signal for an adjacent industry as well. It gives some really good signals for increasing renewable energy production, and it gives some really good signals that if that's your business, then it's likely that you're going to have expanded markets. And then there's sort of the development of end user markets. We've already, in the last few years, identified shipping. Shipping was probably the first talking about hydrogen. There's now discussions of aviation, and there's been some trials. EasyJet, for example, have trialed sort of using hydrogen in different contexts. So these are then these new end user markets that are coming. And then for those that aren't sort of directly in the sort of, the nitty gritty of production or direct use, there's also a lot of aspects. There's the health and safety assessments, and safety is obviously a high priority in the hydrogen industry. And this is sort of something that is developing and evolving. There's then the digital infrastructure and analytics, there's training provision, because with the increased use of hydrogen or the increased use of ammonia as well, as two sort of technologies that are very closely linked, there's going to have to be trained personnel, and that will be an important part of this. There's the installation and maintenance, and then component supply. So that's the supply chain opportunities and sort of, some of the options of getting involved. And then you've got the market opportunities as well. And I would recommend the sort of the supply, if you need more detail and want to look into more detail, there's the supply chains to support a hydrogen economy report. The link to any reports that any of the links to any of the reports that I've used are at the end of the report. So I do recommend this one because it goes into a huge amount of detail, and it'll show you then the sort of most attractive opportunities based on employment and GVA, which often can track very well when you're sort of looking for regional economic development funding to support what you're doing. There's the green hydrogen manufacture, there's the electrical equipment, and then there's some gaps in the market, so sort of like reformer process technology licenses, the specialist pipeline, because of several factors. For long distance transportation, they need to be a different type of pipeline. Electrolyzers, there's only one UK-based supplier of industrial scale electrolyzers, and in the hydrogen and ammonia market, the lack of electrolyzers sort of are showing is quite a significant barrier. If we could have the next slide, please. So in terms of thinking about how you might engage, this is sort of, it's not the step-by-step process. You were probably doing a lot of these bilaterally as well. Oh, the sun has come out and now we can't see my face properly. Never mind. So you'll be doing a lot of these steps bilaterally, but it's identifying your potential contribution to the hydrogen economy. And that could be in a raft of different ways. It could be directly in terms of sort of the production and the use, and it could be those supporting industries as well that sort of lead to you contributing to the development. It also might be as well providing advice and support, because it's a new industry, and like I said at the beginning, this sort of team approach is going to be important. I mean, my expertise, and I have a lot of specialism in sustainability transitions, and these usually take about 50 years to achieve. And from a UK government, EU government perspective, we're looking at achieving this in half the time. So there's going to need a team approach, and this can be directly contributing, or this can also then be sort of that support as well. As an SME, it's evaluating your existing expertise, and some of that existing expertise may not need to be in-house. It might be through collaborating with your supply chain. Someone else might have that expertise, or they might have those contacts. And I think the use of your network contacts is something that's very interesting and important in this kind of early phases of forming this, because it can help you plug any skills or knowledge gaps, and it can help you pull this through. And also remember to seek the business or the technical support. There's GW Shift, and there's a lot of other organizations that are all listed in the report that might be sources of support for you to develop it. And it's remembering it doesn't have to be your first foray into hydrogen doesn't need to be that 1000% risk everything, cards on the table. It could be a small initial project that sees how you could fit in with this economy and what you might be able to offer. And then thinking as well about how you might be eligible for grant support. And in doing this and applying for grant support, think about, what you might contribute to the economy or the region in terms of jobs, in terms of supply chain development, and so forth. If we could pop onto the next slide. So that was all of section 1. Section 2 is gives goes into some detail about the existing projects and gives you some sources that you can use. So it talks about the supply chain contributors that you can find within the region, and the reports and useful links. And I think what's really interesting in looking at hydrogen, because remembering my expertise is technologies rather than one particular technology, is seeing with hydrogen already how many projects are existing in the region and how many different types of projects that we have. So we've got this list here of, we've got local authority enabled, we've got circular economy stuff that uses waste products, decarbonising existing industries, seeking out this new hydrogen allocation round funding, new opportunities in other regions, because depending what type of organization you are, you might be able to do a pilot in one region and that might translate to activity that you can undertake in other regions. And then, we've got the really nice grid balancing project as well. So as I said, that's my quick canter through. So thank you very much for your time and your patience. And I think then we are now going to the panel discussion, and I'm just going to go and close that curtain so you can all see me.
Thank you very much, Laura. That was a great whistle stop tour through the report. If you haven't managed to download a copy of the report yet, Karina has popped in the chat a link to the report. So you can get that, download that from the GW Shift website. So I'd like to introduce our panel now onto the screen. So we've got Laura with us. Perhaps we could stop sharing the slides, Maisie, that would be great. And then we've got Fraser Eli. We've got myself, and then we've also got Matt Browning from FSC, and we've got Anna Lewis from Caerphilly Council. So I think we're just pinning those all to the screen so we can see everyone. I think I'll probably just start with a question to Laura. So, this was great to get all this research done by yourself and put into a report to show the opportunities that there are, particularly in the GW Shift region for green hydrogen. What surprised you most about the findings that you had from this research that you did?
I think it's a good question. I think, to be honest with you, it's the amount of capacity that's already in the region. We talk and you see a lot of the sort of UK policy focus, and there's supposed to be a hydrogen report coming, but it's been talked about for about 6 months, so hopefully it'll be here soon. Hydrogen strategy, but we talk about it being a new industry, but actually regionally we've already got a huge amount of capacity, and like that final slide showing all those different types of projects really shows that the sort of the regional knowledge and know-how can actually be very quickly turned to something new and to pursue that new industry. And I think it's fantastic.
That's great. I agree with you. I think part of the problem is sometimes we, in the hydrogen sector, we talk about projects, and that makes it feel like it's something we're just looking at, we're not actually doing. And actually, there's a lot of companies making business, making money, jobs, and economic value from the green hydrogen economy. Obviously, there's existing fossil fuel hydrogen economies already going in regions. So we need to move away from that projects idea and saying this is really happening, because it will help people to understand. So Anna, you have been, I know, looking at hydrogen amongst other alternative energy, green energy alternatives in Caerphilly Council. What do you see as being the opportunity for hydrogen in this space, and is there anything you're particularly looking at?
Yeah, so for us as a council, obviously we're responsible for everybody within that borough, as well as our own work as a council. So it's important for us to take everybody along with us on that journey. I think hydrogen as a space within this green energy transition. I think I think we need a multi-vector and a multi-solution approach within those vectors. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach, and this is why hydrogen as that space, sits in that space really well. It's important for us as a local authority we're not experts in the hydrogen field or anything like that. We've been lucky to have Dr. Stephen Carr from the University of South Wales to be able to support us on this. And we are doing lots of trialing of different things, having a look at different technologies and what they compare to each other like. Trying to look at techno-economic cases to see what's suitable for the borough and things like that. So it's there's a lot going on with us, but hydrogen definitely has a place. We started to look at it because of our fleet vehicles, and that we had an ethical water source that we wanted to do something with. Rather, and when we were looking at hydrogen, it was important for us to look at that water source rather than anything else. But it was our fleet that we looked at it for in reality, especially our larger fleet vehicles, given our topography and things like that in the borough.
Brilliant. And actually, that's a great segue into Fraser, because Fraser, you are actually creating products in this space for the green hydrogen economy. And I think your water source is probably one that we have a lot of around the UK.
Yes, we do have a lot. Yes, we're focused on splitting seawater to make hydrogen, which means that we're not reliant on pure water supplies and freshwater supplies. And we're busy investigating a whole range of wastewaters. We're trying to broaden that. So that frees things up. I mean, particularly things like port operations, coastal operations, offshore, wind farms, all these things where getting pure water can be a problem. The more we can free that up, the more we can cut costs, the better. Yeah. And this is an early prototype of a seawater electrolyzer.
I can see that. I can see that. That's brilliant. So in terms of this report, what did you take from it as an SME? What did you feel about this region and the work there?
Something I really, I mean, energy security. Right now, it's a hot topic, isn't it? Because of the Middle East and all this. And this region, we could be enormously more or completely self-sufficient in our energy. We need to get the renewables going because they're the source. Hydrogen is an energy carrier. It's not a source of energy. It's a carrier, a fuel. It's a feedstock. And then that feeds into the industries. But we need to get that chain going. We need the offshore wind farms. We need the geothermal. We need to link all this together. And part of that's government policy. Part of that's local policy. But I was very glad to see that the report did touch upon all these different sectors and draw them together.
Yeah, that's great. And I think we can see a lot of opportunity here. Obviously, companies like yours don't grow unless they have investments. So we've got Matt Browning here from FSE. Matt, what's your take on the hydrogen economy and this region in particular, because your fund is focused in that region?
Yeah, so we're an agnostic investor, which means we invest across all stages and not specifically targeting hydrogen energy transition in any way. However, there is something about the need in order for us to decarbonize that drives a very good thesis that we need to invest in this further. And with the Southwest being such a prominent part of the country to do so, SMEs such as Fraser that are looking at both commercializing and expanding the green hydrogen space is very interesting. The policy support that was linked, the HRIs and everything, sorry, that was just my emails, that Laura identified gives great confidence that this public funding and capex support, infrastructure, etc., can underpin a real position for us as economically commercial investors to demonstrate on there. So it's a very exciting space and very much looking for SMEs across the whole supply chain, not necessarily the production of it, but the aiding of that production, the digital infrastructure, and those other forms of application for us to be able to invest into it and help them grow, and ultimately drive very meaningful economic prosperity and job creation in the region.
Yeah, no, that's great. And we won't get that without investment like yourself. So what would make a regional hydrogen company truly investable for you in 2026?
We're looking for those hungry investors, founders who are there for change. The public support, if it's aligned with the mission that they're already going on, and we can provide that additional capital, that's what we're looking for. Companies such as Latent Drive, who ultimately have a mission-driven business, a very strong skill set, both in founders and the wider team, and then are able to underpin their business with commercial traction is what we're looking for. So they're essentially research development's been complete. They've got some novel technology, and there is a market for them to move into, and our capital is there to start to define that.
That's great. Thanks, Matt. And so Fraser, you said that's a prototype. Where are you in your journey to actually making products and selling them out into the market?
Well, over this summer, we're doing demonstration projects at Portland Port, who are nearby to us, and they're hosting the projects, and we're installing prototypes like this at the port. They've got a solar array there, quite a big solar array, so we've got renewables, and we can generate hydrogen from that. We can store it, and we can refuel a harbour patrol boat. So we've got a real live demonstration going on of a working vessel fueled from renewables to hydrogen to that vessel, all within the port. They're not buying anything in. Exeter University busy working on the patrol boat, converting that to run on hydrogen. So it's a very busy time for us, actually. Frantically busy at the minute, trying to get all the hardware sorted out, everything ready to go for that.
Yeah, and so from your perspective, what do universities bring to this for the green hydrogen economy?
Well, we've been working very closely with Exeter, particularly on the hydrogen port project. Yes, I mean, I'm an engineer. I mean, we're kind of a very engineering-based company. We've had to learn an awful lot of hard science to do what we do. But we have a lot of interactions with the Henry Rice Institute, who represent hydrogen research in the UK, and Exeter University particularly. We've worked with them in different areas. So Bournemouth University, who are very close to us. There's a lot goes on there, and something we want to engage with in the future is the knowledge transfer partnerships. As we grow, we want to actually do that and then bring in academic expertise into the company.
Yeah, that's a great way to get some technical expertise into the
Yes.
well, you have technical expertise, but it's some additional technical expertise with perhaps some leading edge research behind them to come in and work with you on a particular project or just in the business generally, which is great. And so, Anna, tell me a little bit more about, what you are hoping will come from this trial project that you're doing down in Caerphilly for fleet vehicles. What's the aim with that?
Yeah, so we've been lucky enough that through work with Cardiff Capital Region, and the project was funded by Welsh Government. And there's been another council also involved in that trial to see what it's like in other areas as well. We are hoping at the end of it we'll be able to compare 3 types of vehicle, which would be our normal diesel vehicle, an electric vehicle, and a hydrogen vehicle, side by side on the same routes, if you know what I mean, collecting similar amounts of waste and things like that. We're hoping then that we can identify why we need certain vehicles, what our requirements would be of those vehicles, and compare exactly what they can and can't do for us. Like I say, given our topography and things like that, we know, if I'm honest, that the electric vehicle doesn't do what we need it to do. we're hoping that hydrogen is going to be able to fill that gap. But we're also doing some. We've also, obviously, with the support of the University of South Wales and Welsh Government funding, we've been able to do some trialling around electrolysis, and looking at different looking at electrolysis that may be able to take in that dirty water and things, and also what would be needed to clean that water as well. So there's lots of R&D projects going on in the hydrogen space, which I think is really important. And like I say, we wouldn't be able to do it without Dr. Carr from the university.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to hear. And Laura, you mentioned, I think one of us mentioned the hydrogen strategy that everybody's sort of on tender hooks for. Although I suspect it might be the summer now before we see it due to PERDA. But what does government need to do to ensure that we take the advantage of this region and all the elements that you've put into the report that say that this is the place to do green hydrogen?
I mean, the non-eloquent answer is just get on with it. The eloquent answer obviously would be just thinking more about how we can, what expertise that we have in the region. Also acknowledging, like you're saying, Anna, is that we are talking about a multi-fuel future across shipping, across aviation, across transport. It's a multi-fuel future because different fuels are going to be better suited for different jobs. Full stop. Yeah. And I think if we sort of go with a mindset that, everything's going to be hydrogen or everything's going to be electric, that's just going to block. That's just going to be inhibiting to the development of any of these things. I mean, from my perspective, my sort of increasing expertise is in shipping, and hydrogen will be one of those future fuels. It will be a future fuel in its own context and in its own right, and it will also be a huge component of the sort of ammonia market as well, because ammonia really for that long haul shipping is thing. So I think in what I'm saying is, there's a lot of literature that says that waiting on government can actually cost you money, because that sort of first mover advantage starts to slip by you. And I think this might be another instance where, waiting for the perfect policy support might not be the appropriate thing to do. And I think it's, if you can start thinking in that sort of, outside of the UK government, just getting on with those projects and those pilots and those thinking about how you might do it, will probably put you in a good position that when we get this hydrogen strategy that we've all been waiting on, and when these things happen, you're in a position that you're ready to go. I've sort of, a colleague of mine's always said, obviously we bid for projects as academics, and he's always said, if you don't have your team in place when the bid is announced, you're never going to win it, because you need to have that expertise developed, you need to have that trust developed, and you need to have those working relationships developed. So this is all work that we could be doing now whilst we wait for sort of other things to hit. And like I say, there's, GW Shift, there's lots of support out already, outside of the sort of big headline, political sphere kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a really good message. We just have to get on with it, and be doing it, and developing the strategy, and the policies will come. But we all know that hydrogen has to be part of the mix, but it's not the only thing. I'll make a little advert for my podcast later on the only way is hydrogen, question mark, because we're trying to debunk some of the myths and see where hydrogen actually fits through that work. So I just, a question open to the panel is, what do you think is the biggest challenge for us to get to this market, and is it all about decarbonisation? Because our orange friend in the US, I probably shouldn't say that, but has done two big things when it comes to clean energy. One, he said we don't need it. So is it still the decarbonisation message? Because everybody, there's a lot of people jumping on that bandwagon and saying we don't need to do it. And he's also disrupted the market from the fossil fuel perspective with the war in Iran. So what do you think is the real reason we should be doing this? And is it all about decarbonisation? Opens the floor. Who'd like to come in on that one first?
Do you want me to come in? Or?
Yeah, go for it, Anna, and then we'll come to Fraser because I can see he put his hand up too.
Yeah, I think it's not just about decarbonisation. It's about equality. It's about employment. Cami and you very often say South Wales valleys were built on coal for energy, basically for heat and for power. And it was a great industry in this day. It could be the South Wales valleys could be great again for that same reason, without sounding like Trump saying make South Wales great again. But it's about employment, it's about education, it's about health and well-being. It's so much more than that, but it's also about which I'm sure Matt will be able to talk about more. It's about that commercial aspect and that investment as well. So it's hydrogen could be all things to all men.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that. Great. I'm going to say Southwest and South Wales because that's my region for GW Shift.
Yeah.
But both those regions have quite interesting things in terms of unemployment. If you dive down into Cornwall, it's not had the big industry, but there's a lot of unemployment down there alongside, South Wales corridor as well. So there's patches of that across the whole region. So this could be the opportunity that we should be taking for this economy. I saw Fraser, you put your hand up. What's your
I would echo what Anna said. I mean, yes, there's decarbonisation and we must do that. But also there is being self-sufficient, being independent, actually producing energy, producing materials in our own area, having jobs in our own area, expertise, developing all these things. And at the moment, we're too reliant on importing things from abroad. Almost everything in Britain is imported from some far off country. And we shouldn't be in that situation. We should be developing our own things.
I think for me, it's about supply. Laura's report highlights so many applications that, as a layperson, I'll just assume I'm putting this in my car as the future of hydrogen. When you hear about it being used for fertilization, there is a huge demand for food scarcity, and a solution for that can be hydrogen and that process of ammonia. And for me, it's about a choice. Right now, 99% or something ridiculous is grey hydrogen, which ultimately uses off fossil fuels. If there is a choice that is going to increasingly become more commercially viable in green hydrogens, then it gives the ultimate end user, the consumer, of a choice of a new fuel source. So the multitude of applications, the fact that there is going to be a supply, and a basic economics that we think about in investments is supply and demand. And if the supply and demand is being driven, let's increase that supply to make sure that people have that increased choice. So it's highly important. It's a very strong use case for it, being energy, but actually those other applications are what intriguing me a little bit about writing some investment theses right now.
Thank you, Matt. And I think we are seeing that more and more from investors across the patch, whether they be specialized investors in this space or like yourself, agnostic, but also keen on seeing investments that help society and people and the environment alongside actual products that are going to make money, which of course is where investors want to be. I've got a few comments from our lovely audience, which I think if you've got any questions for the panel, we've probably got a few more minutes that we can I could put a question to, pop them into the chat, and I'll happily pick them up. I saw that Chris Steele from Hydrogen Southwest has followed up on your comment, Laura, around maritime, and he said that they're sponsoring a green shipping pilot project for an 8,000 aggregate vessel from Cornwall to the southeast under the UK shore to zero, powered by e-methanol. Do you know, tell me what e-methanol means, because that might not be something for everyone, if you know.
I would say it's again, it's using the sort of renewable energy part of it, and I think this kind of links up with what is it Sanjay, I want to say Sanjay is saying, and I think this is the important bit for me as well, is there's that sort of energy store balancing transportation aspect that's, I think, is really important. I mean, I used to do a lot of work in marine energy, and obviously there's sort of infrastructure and the grid infrastructure, and the grid generally, if you've got an EV, you will have had plenty of conversations about grid infrastructure in the UK. And I think when you think about things like hydrogen, that can sort of be a way of circumventing a lot of these problems. And I think, you know, when you look at the increasing electrification of a lot of industries, they're not going to have the infrastructure that they need. They're not going to have that cabling. That cabling is also very, very expensive. So, you know, yes, I sort of agree with sort of the two things that are happening here is, you know, we've got increasing electrification, and then we can use this storage of energy as well. You know, I can think of sort of proposals for sort of renewable energy photovoltaics, and the proposal for these greenfield sites are only because that they're close to grid connection, not because that's the best optimal area. It's because they need the grid connection to be able to sort of route off the electricity. So that again, I think, is that important role that sort of hydrogen could be playing.
That's really interesting. Absolutely. And you know, about that grid balancing, which I think Sanjay is saying there, we know that a lot of energy that's produced from renewables can't actually be taken up because it can't be needed at that time, but it will be needed later. And so obviously hydrogen offers that opportunity for storage, and is something that we need to look at, or when we don't have wind or we don't have solar, which we know we haven't seen much of that this year so far. So yes, being able to balance the grid with having that storage from when we have had good sunshine. Probably had quite a lot of wind this year, but so far, but you know, it sometimes we don't, and so having that store there ready to go, and you know, Fraser, with being able to have that producing hydrogen from salt water, perhaps at these offshore sites, must be really useful way to go. So we've had Zentech International have said they're working on aerospace, supporting sectors such as aerospace and oil and gas. And their main development team's based down in Port Talbot. They're currently interested in developing and validating new capabilities with their software to support the hydrogen sector. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it up there, because it will be good to let people like Zentech, who are on the call, know a little bit more about the opportunities that we have within the GW Shift program, so that people can access support to finding investors like Matt, but also doing some of the collaborative R&D that Fraser and Anna mentioned with the work with academics. So if Maisie, if you thank you, well, we should first of all thank you all for joining us. I think there's a lot in this report. Thank you, Laura, for writing it. And hopefully it will help people to see really what the opportunities are here and start exploring this, whether you're already in hydrogen or you're like the consultancy that is beginning to look at this and see where the opportunities are, particularly when you're in this region. So thank you very much for joining us. And if we pop up the slides, I think I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Zakir. Zakir is our sector manager for GW Shift, and he can help you access some of that academic research through collaborative R&D. So over to you, Zakir.
Thank you, Karen. Hello, everyone. As I mentioned, my name is Zakir Hussain. I am a sector manager working for Set Square Partnership, looking after the collaborative R&D project development. So I am helping companies connect with academic research and mainly to translate innovation into commercialization. And we have a range of, do you have any other slide for this one? Sorry, Messi. Is there any other slide? Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Messi. And yeah, so we have a range of well-established academic researchers across the 7GW Shift University, and they are from Southwest England and South Wales region. I think you already know them. They are University of Bath, Bristol, Exeter, Plymouth, Cardiff, Swansea, and the University of South Wales. So their research covers the green hydrogen value chain from production and storage to application in key sectors such as transport, automobile, aviation, aerospace, maritime energy, biofuel, green chemicals, and many other areas where actually decarbonization is critical for achieving the net zero target. We also support engaged with peer SMEs across the supply chain, which is, I think, often essential for building consortia and developing strategic partnership. And currently, we are helping a range of collaborative R&D funding options, which is, I think, Innovate UK, KTB, APSRC, Horizon, ATI, Drive 35, and other relevant calls. Most importantly, we also provide professional like a bid writing support and which is fully funded through the GW Shift. And I think it's a valuable support to help the partners develop competitive proposal to increase the bid writing success rate. And if you are looking for any collaborative R&D project development, please feel free to reach out. My contacts are on the slide, so I would be happy to discuss any option and support. Thank you.
Thank you, Sakir. That's really great opportunity there to get some support in developing these bids for that grant writing support for those bids. And there is a lot of calls beginning to pop up now that our funding councils such as Innovate UK, etc., have actually got their allocations of funding. So really do get in touch with Zakir and he can help you develop that. We do know that if you have a academic in some academic rigor into your proposal, that you are more likely to be successful from programs we've run in the past. You can be, we saw 30% success rate with projects that had that academic input into them. So worth talking with Zakir. And now I'd like to hand over to Chris Hill, who's the investment program manager at Set Squared, who's helped lots of companies over the years get support with equity investment, which goes hand in hand with grant investment. So, Chris, do you want to tell us a little bit about what Set Squared offers through GW Shift?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, Karen. And yeah, thank you for today. It's been really insightful. Lovely to meet you all. My name is Chris, and as Karen said, I manage the investment program for Set Squared. And essentially, a big part of my role is, as Karen said again, supporting companies that are actively raising fund or fundraising. We use a variety of tools to kind of support what can be quite a difficult transition from founding a company and focusing on the tech to kind of knuckling down and actually figuring out how to raise money. A tool that we use that's very, very useful is Raise, and you can see it on screen there. It's essentially a self-serve platform that takes companies through step by step what to expect during a raise. I guess it's kind of teed up for those that are looking at engaging with VCs, but it's very transposable for those that are looking at earlier stages of investment as well. So looking at angels and angel syndicates. But it's a really, really useful tool that we have, given to multiple GW Shift participants to kind of use as a first touch point for looking at what to expect when raising investment. Another thing that we have within the sort of arsenal of tools for companies is our investment platform. It's called Investory, and it's for any kind of program participants that are involved with Set Squared, and GW Shift is obviously one of those. Companies are invited to fill out a profile that's fully sort of locked down, so it's safe for them to kind of put their investor materials on there. We've got 600 sort of actively engaged investors on the platform itself, and it's just a really good way of engaging with a vast number of investors, sort of mixing that sort of scattergun approach with kind of really focusing in on relevant investors that would be a good fit for them. There are a few other opportunities and additional support that we offer companies that are coming through programs like GW Shifts. One of them is sort of really tailored one-to-one support, and whether that's they're looking at specific types of support or advice when they're looking at fundraising, or actually just looking for some feedback on a pitch deck before they go out to investors. It's really valuable time to kind of spend with them and making sure that they're kind of hitting all the points that they need to be hitting. We also offer companies the opportunity to feature in our monthly investor bulletin. This goes out to around 1,500 investors, a very broad spectrum. So there's high net worths there, angel investors, angel syndicates through to VCs and CVCs. So again, a really good opportunity to get a number of eyeballs on pitch decks and that sort of thing. We also have our showcases and events. We have an annual showcase, Investment Futures, which is in London. We typically take 20 companies from across the Set Squared portfolio to London, and have a really kind of big event. Half of it is designed to showcase those companies, and the other is really to engage with investors and figure out how we as Set Squared can act as a sort of really positive conduit between these really early stage founders and investors themselves. And then we also have a number of regional and local events as well that we kind of get involved with as well. We also have a number of opportunities to kind of support companies on grants. So things like the Innovate UK Investor Partnerships Programme, of which Set Squared are kind of investor partner. We kind of again act as a conduit for angel networks who typically don't have the bandwidth to kind of access such grants. But there are a number of things there, and again, it really does just help kind of find that nice blend between grant and equity sort of investment coming into companies which investors we know love to see. But yeah, more than happy, same as Zakir, if anyone wants to kind of engage and explore, support, more than happy to do so through GW Shift.
Thank you very much, Chris. I know with both these programs, because I might have just had a little something to do with SetSquared in the past, I know that both our collaborative R&D and our investment program at SetSquared have been very successful in helping support companies grow and get the investment needed to make that growth into largest companies. Thank you, Chris. If you wanted to put up the next slide, Maisie, I'm just going to point people to the chat, make sure that they picked up on Jane Bradford from Innovate UK. Comment there around what's in the industrial strategy. Hydrogen is definitely part of that, even though we don't have the hydrogen. It's a revised hydrogen strategy anyway. So we already know that the government is committed to this, and I heard that from Desnes this week. So it's just that that revised strategy hasn't yet been published. But there are calls coming out, and she highlights the UK Shore Clean Maritime Demonstrator competition that is coming out. I think that may be out already, and there's a link to that. There's 121 million available for that, and there is a briefing on the 19th of March if anyone is in the maritime sector. Just another couple of little slides to tell you bit more about some other opportunities in GW Shift before we finish. Hydrogen Launchpad and research impact, whether you're an academic or early career researcher, I should say. There is research impact, which can help you look at the commercialization and partnerships you need to make for that. And then for the Hydrogen Launchpad, that is very much for SMEs of all sizes, helping you to understand and develop partnerships that will help your growth in your business, particularly in the hydrogen sector, of course. So that's that. Next slide, please. We have a webinar coming up, which is more focused on this funding and investment on the 24th of April. So if you are an SME or a researcher who's commercializing and wants to find out a little bit more about unlocking that investment, that's happening on the 24th of April. And I mentioned my podcast series. You will get all these slides, so the links will be in them, but you can get it from the GW Shift website. And if, like me, you want to watch it rather than listen to it, then it is on YouTube, and you can get to that through our website. Next slide. We have a network on the innovation platform that Set Squared runs. Got about 500 members now. And there's a new mentoring scheme that's going to be starting very soon. So that's an opportunity to sign up for that. Next slide, please, because I'm at time. There are some calls for projects with the academic community. So the high impact one is finishing very soon. There's opportunity for comments. You heard Anna talk about that. They really do benefit whether you're local government or you are in industry, then that's a good opportunity, and lots of other ways get involved with us. So I just want to say, we've heard today about this opportunity being clear and real in this region, but it's not automatic. It's got to be about collaboration, investment and skills, and it requires leadership. The region's got assets. The question is now if we have the urgency, and I think we've heard from people here we do, and we want to do with this, and that the investment is there alongside the will and the innovation that we need to make this grow. So if we're serious about our industrial growth and clean energy and long-term competitiveness, now is the time to engage. Don't wait till 2030. So I'd like to thank our panelists again and all the people who've helped to make both this report and this webinar possible, including Maisie and Karina. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you on the next funding webinar at the end of April. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
You.